ISIS is seen by many as the biggest threat to the United States, but former CIA Director Leon Panetta says we might have had a chance to stop them had President Obama not pulled out of Iraq. Take a listen.
Were you confident in that moment that pulling out was the right thing to do?
No, I wasn't. I really thought that it was important for us to maintain a presence in Iraq. The decision was that we ought to at least try to maintain 8,000 to 10,000 U.S. troops there.
Wow. Stephen Yates is the former Deputy National Security Advisor for Vice President Cheney. Colonel Ralph Peters is a Fox News strategic analyst. They both join me now. Colonel, let me start with you. How damning is that? I mean, you hear from former director of the CIA, former Secretary of Defense, saying that, and lifelong Democrat, by the way, saying that the choices made by the president essentially opened the door to what is going on now. How damning is that?
It's very damning. You've also heard a variation of it from former Defense Secretary Bob Gates. You've got Hillary Clinton turning on him. Now, maybe Steve Yates can give us an example. I can't give you any examples in my lifetime of so many former cabinet members turning strongly and openly against a still sitting president, someone who's still in office. But I think the bottom line is, for me, is this. Gates, Panetta, and others, they care about our national security. They realize this is a serious and growing threat that has to be addressed. Yeah. And the president doesn't seem, even now, to take it seriously.
Stephen, you know, he was talking about former Defense Secretary Robert Gates saying that we're going to need to have boots on the ground in order to battle this, and that is the point at which he disagrees with the president's strategy. There are military analysts, high-ranking, lining up on every side saying that it's going to need boots on the ground, that the president's headed in the wrong direction. What do you make of that, and do you think the president's listening?
Well, there's no evidence of the president listening so far. What a lot of these top military and intelligence people are saying now is what all of us have known. I mean, you can just look at the nearby geography of Yemen, where we've had somewhat of a limited approach of drones in the air and some intelligence liaison, other things. And for many, many years, we've had the same broad strategy, and it's right back in the throes of political turmoil and contending Islamist factions. There's no reason to believe that model on a broader scale in Iraq and Syria isn't going to lead to the same results. So I think there's a lot of concern in the system that these half measures might actually lead to a more dangerous situation.
I mean, meanwhile, ISIS is able to continue growing partly because of its ability to recruit followers from all over the globe. One of its latest video uses scenes from the popular video game Grand Theft Auto and says, quote, "Do the things you do in games in real life on the battlefield." Colonel, they're having a lot of luck with this type of propaganda. How do we battle back against it?
Well, it's not luck, Melissa. It's skill. It's insight. They know their audience. They've done the market research that we refuse to do. I mean, ISIS and the other groups that are on the up and coming up, like Khorasan, which Director of National Intelligence thinks is an even bigger threat than ISIS potentially. All these terrorist groups in the Middle East understand who they are trying to recruit. They understand that young men like violence. Young men, some of them, are just susceptible to bloodlust. That shedding blood is very, very addictive. And even as the Obama administration and the left tries to feminize American kids, these guys understand that beheading videos really work for an 18-year-old in Syria or Egypt or Tunisia or Libya who wants to get in on the action. I always tell people, Melissa, that the point of military discipline isn't to get young men to kill. That's easy. The point of military discipline is to get them to stop killing when you give the order. And we just refuse to even recognize fundamental human nature. Plus, our government is so slow in responding to anything. Every video, every propaganda effort has to be vetted and vanillaized. It's just absolutely hopeless. We can't compete with these guys when it comes to appeal.
Stephen, do you agree with that? I mean, I'm a mom of two sons. Everything the Colonel just said is terrifying. I don't know. Do you think that applies to all young men?
Well, I think that really the key in this is that we're dealing with a different kind of terrorists. We're dealing with a different form of recruitment. After 9/11, we came to have mainstream notion that we're dealing with people who grow up in poverty and great disadvantage, And that's one of the reasons why these ungoverned territories were a feeding ground for recruits. They're using modern technology, using social media in ways that are far more sophisticated than anything we have thrown back in their direction, and it's working for them.
Yeah.
And so what I think it's telling me is they are marketing to a modern demographic of young people, and it's not to the impoverished and caves in the desolate parts of the world, and that should scare us.
Yeah, it does. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Whipping up a comeback, how Paula Dean